What's going on, everybody? Welcome to something totally new. This is going to be an episode review for the first episode for The Mandalorian Season 2. I did try to do these kind of weekly episode reviews on my old channel for the first season of Mandalorian, but of course you all know what happened to that channel, so yeah, Blue Spade came up with this idea that we could do like weekly episode reviews for Season 2. I like that idea. I just need to, like with the anime reviews, I need to be careful with the copyright, especially considering this is Disney. So I'm probably just going to be doing what I'm doing with the anime reviews, where I just use like maybe one image and not really anything else, because I just do not want to run the risk of the Disney copyright coming after me. So hopefully that works out. But yeah, of course, with me as always, I have Blue Spade.
So this episode is, of course, directed by Jon Favreau, who is, of course, the creator of the show. Of course, the beginning of this episode was pretty much a recap of everything that happened in season 1. You know, the Mandalorian, whose real name is Din Djarin, is tasked to finding like child's like species or its own kind of sorts. Like it's not really clear what he's searching for. Or I'm not really sure if he knows what or who he's searching for to, in order for them to take care of this child that he's being tasked to take care of.
Yeah, like it seems like he's trying to get the child back to his own kind. I mean, that's one of the more interesting things that was introduced in season 1 is the, the child, or Baby Yoda, as many people refer to him as, because the only other Yoda species that is of the same as Yoda that we've seen so far has been Jarl from the prequels, and not much else aside from some things from the comics that were referenced Yoda's species. Like I think it says his planet was destroyed or something. I forget exactly, but. We never really see any of the other of Yoda species in the Star Wars movies. Well,
from the start of this episode, the Mandalorian is pretty much, he's looking for other Mandalorians from other tribes to I guess aid him in trying to help finding the child's own kind or something like that. Because if you remember, like in the very last episode, the Mandalorian armorer told him about the history of what the child was. Yeah, the Mandalorian, the female Mandalorian from the end of the very last episode of season 1. She was the one who told him what the Jedi were, and that they were originally an enemy of the Mandalorians back then. However, Din, who's the main character of the show, he's not familiar of the Jedi or anything the child is associated with, because for one, he's never seen a Jedi before, and two, he's not really a traditional Mandalorian. He was adopted into the Mandalorian creed.
Yeah. I guess the fact that he's never really seen a Jedi kind of makes sense, considering the time period it takes place in is technically the original trilogy timeline, which the Jedi were pretty much, I won't say I think more or less there were very few of them, almost none. It's aside from Luke Skywalker and some of the other. Maybe just Luke. I'm trying to remember. There were probably some stuff in the EU that would say there was more, but as far as we know,
But so, in terms of this continuity, there's only maybe 3 Jedi I know that are still alive in this particular timeline.
Remind me again, is this after? This is technically after Return of the Jedi, right? This is where this takes place.
5 years after Return of the Jedi. Yeah, but they are, in terms of casting, they're probably not obviously going to get Mark Hamill to play Luke Skywalker.
That would be
in this
huge
particular
if they
timeline.
did, though. I mean.
Yeah, but I really don't see them doing that. But they are planning on, they are rumored to have Rosario Dawson playing as Ahsoka in this series. So I guess it makes sense in a timeline perspective, but as of right now, we don't have really much of a full confirmation of her appearing in this show. so far, unless, you know, until maybe the later episodes. But yeah. So the episode starts off with the Mandalorian in this unknown, I guess, this unknown planet. They never really said where he went to, but it's more of like almost a dark underground, like rundown place where he goes to meet this informant in this like underground fighting arena to ask if he knows of any Mandalorians that are still roaming around. And of course, he gets double-crossed by his informant, and then shortly afterwards, Mando manages to fend them off easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he catches the guy, ties him up, and basically forces him to give him information. I think information on where he can... was it where he can find the other... possibly find more Mandalorians, I think he was looking for. I think, yeah.
Yeah. But the only known information he has is that he thinks he knows of a Mandalorian that's currently operating on Tatooine. Now, like when I first heard that immediately, you know, pointed me to Boba Fett, as he was like literally the last person we know that was on, well, the last notable like guy in Mandalorian armor on Tatooine.
Yeah.
And so like shortly afterwards, well, of course, like the Mando leaves the guy for dead by shooting out the lights and like leaving him to be eaten by whatever those red-eyed creatures were that
I have no idea what those
creeping
were
up on the guy. Yeah. But yeah, so Mando goes back to Tatooine, which I'm surprised that they had him go back to that planet after like he made an appearance in I think what was it in the other episodes in season 1. So he goes back and he meets the mechanic from the first season again, and he asks like about this Mandalorian in a city or a town called Mos Pelgo, which is obviously a town that was mentioned in one of the Aftermath books from, well, shortly after Disney bought out Star Wars. It was mentioned in the Aftermath it was in the Aftermath books about a certain particular character wearing Mandalorian armor. So Mando travels to the town and he goes asking around if there's a Mandalorian there, and then the bartender of the town tells him that the Marshal of the town is one of the more notable people wearing the Mandalorian armor. And once we see him, like, we can obviously see he's wearing Boba Fett's armor.
Yeah, but it's not actually Boba Fett. Just the guy who took his, or, has his armor. And of course, as he explains later, he acquired it from the Jawas because the Jawas took the armor.
But we don't know how the Jawas obtained the armor in the first place. But we do know how, like, this guy named Cobb Vanth. He explains that shortly after the events of Return of the Jedi, he and the rest of the townsfolk were celebrating the Empire's defeat. Unfortunately, a group of bandits took over the town because of the power struggle with the Empire being defeated.
I think they were called the Mining Collective.
Yeah, the Mining Collective. And what happened afterwards is he ran off with like a container full of crystals, and he was basically just walking around in the desert like for days without any food or water. And then fortunately the Jawas found him, and then gave him some water and food. So but soon afterwards, the Jawas found the container of crystals that he was carrying around, and they were willing to trade him off with something valuable. And Cobb manages to find a wall full of Mandalorian armor that they were holding on for. I don't know how long they were holding on to that armor. I mean, considering that this took place shortly after Return of the Jedi, they've been holding on to it for maybe about, I don't know, maybe shortly after Boba Fett got swallowed by the Sarlacc pit at the time. So Cobb does buy off the armor. He manages to fight off the miners of the Mining Collective, and then he was able to drive them out of town. So he does meet up with Mando, who Mando originally thought he was another Mandalorian, but Cobb confirms that he's not a Mandalorian. He just happened to come across the armor. So because Mando is like pretty loyal to his own creed, like he finds it as an insult that that another person who is not really a Mandalorian is wearing the armor. So he demands like Cobb given the armor. However, like before like supposedly they were gonna get off into a shoot off over the armor, like a giant creature is like crawling underneath the town, which is of course confirmed to be a crate dragon.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised that. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that they ended up changing up the crate dragon, but I thought it still looked good.
I liked it, but like, you know, I guess like because I didn't know as much about it because me and my friend watched this at the time, and he's really into the Star Wars lore, and it really bothered him like how they changed the crate dragon. And like I didn't really know much about it, but yeah, apparently the crate dragon is a little bit like, apparently he's a little bit smaller and he walks instead of crawls underneath the sand. But in this version, of course, he's pretty huge and he crawls under the sand, kind of like a sandworm.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it looked like. But you know, but yeah, so Cobb tells the Mandalorian that that the crate dragon has been pretty much harassing the townsfolk, like for I guess on a frequent basis. So he gives the Mando an offer, saying if you can help defeat the crate dragon, then I'll give you the armor. And then the two like go out, try to find where the crate dragon is, like I guess hiding out at.
Out too is like if you notice the thing that Timothy Oliphant's character is riding, it looks very similar to like, because I noticed this when I first watched it. I'm like, that looks like almost like Anakin's pod racer, except he modified it to be like
yeah. I mean, it definitely looks like it was part of Anakin's pod, just due to like the two fins that was part of it, and not to mention the size of the pod looks. I'm pretty sure that is part of like Anakin's pod, because
like I was like,
because we never really found out what Anakin did with his pod racer after he won in episode in episode 1, of course. I mean, I remembered he mentioned that he ended up selling the pod racer by the time he left Tatooine. So I think it's possible that, well, I guess like, you know, nobody had a use for pod that kind of pod racer. So I guess it's possible that Cobb might have taken possession of one of those pods and then just, I guess, like modified it into like a speeder bike, which is pretty unique.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of an Easter egg there.
Yeah. So Mando and Cobb managed to get into like this, I guess it's like one chasm in which they run into like all these different dog-like creatures that that we see, like we saw them back in episode 2, along like these Tusken Raiders that Anakin ended up slaughtering back in episode 2. So it is confirmed, like, yeah, so they do meet up with the Tusken Raiders in this episode. And you know, Mando, who's like who is good at translating, is, you know, manages to convince like the Tusken Raiders that to help them in their mission to destroy the crate dragon, because the Raiders are also looking to kill the dragon itself too.
And my friend pointed this out when we watched it, but and I kind of agreed, but he liked that they like kind of changed up how the Tusken Raiders are perceived, like, because if you remember, like in the original movies and in the prequels, they're basically perceived to be these like violent savages, and that's kind of true, but I mean in this one they sort of make them out to be more like misunderstood, you know, because like Mando can actually understand them. And
the episode obviously had some Western feel references in there. Like the Tusken Raiders are almost like depicted as like Native Americans, like defending their own land from all these miners, like pretty much taking over their town. Because I mean, the Mando mentions that the Tusken Raiders have been surviving on Tatooine for thousands of years, and they of course they are gonna violently attack, like, you know, different townsfolk that come up onto their land, like, you know, without their permission. So they do venture into the Great Dragon's like cave, and they try to lure it out. Well, one of the Tusken Raiders like tried to lure it out with one of the banthas that they were trying to feed it with. Unfortunately, one of the Tusken Raiders that was trying to run away got eaten instead. Yeah. So it was a little bit funny when they saw that. So Mando and Cobb like decide like we're gonna have to come up with a new plan. So they decide to ride back into town and convince the townsfolk to, I guess, to team up with the Tusken Raiders to help take this thing down.
Yeah, I mean they eventually like begrudgingly agreed to it. Like, and I mean even after the wars, they still have like disagreements with the Tusken Raiders, but they kind of learn to work alongside them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Mando does mention that if they do help to kill the Great Dragon, the Tuskens will promise not to attack the townsfolk unless one of the townspeople end up provoking them first. So they all like gather their equipment, including like a huge bunch of explosives, and take it to the back to the Great Dragon cave. So like this particular scene reminded me of that one mission I played back in Knights of the Old Republic, in a similar manner, in which you had to kill a Great Dragon by planting like explosives on the ground and then luring it with banthas to feed it with. And so like you draw out the Great Dragon, it walks out, and then like it walks over like this huge mine of explosives and kill it. However, like in this one, they tried to do something similar. However, it's not as easy as it looks, because whenever they try to do it, like they try dragging it out by firing all these ballistas at the Great Dragon and try to pull it, but then the Great Dragon manages to defend itself by shooting out like this saliva full of acid or something like that. Yeah, he just
dissolves like a ton of the Tusken Raiders with acid. Yeah, it shows that the Great Dragon is like really, really powerful in this episode, and he's not easily taken down. Maybe as opposed to like how it was in the game, where it was a little bit, because my friend was saying, yeah, like it in the game it's not, or like, as far as he knows, like the Great Dragon is like, if you can get his weak point, then he'll go down. But in this one, it's like it's a little bit harder than that, it seems.
Yeah, I mean they do manage to lure it out far enough to blast the explosive underneath it. However, like it doesn't kill it, so it buries back down at the ground, and then it just crawls back like way onto the top of the mountain, and then just starts shooting out acid from its mouth from like way high up. So Mando and Cobb like decide to take matters into their own hands and try to I guess try to distract it from picking off the many of the Tusken Raiders and the townsfolk. So Mando's like last desperate plan is using the bantha that's strapped with like a huge ton of explosives all over it, and then try to lure the Great Dragon into eating it, and then just blast it from the inside. What I didn't expect is, well, the bantha for one tried to get away because it was scared of the Great Dragon trying to come after it. So Mando tried to pull it back and then lure the Great Dragon back to it. But like I said, I wasn't expecting the Mandalorian to just intentionally get swallowed up like that.
Yeah. I was surprised. Yeah, he gets swallowed, and of course he basically just blows up the Great Dragon from inside his mouth.
But first off, like he had to shock his way out of the Great Dragon's mouth, and then just take the detonator and just blast the entire thing.
Yeah, me and my friend were both surprised he survived that, because his armor was covered with acid. I guess, I don't know if they specify this, but I guess the Beskar armor can withstand like acid or something.
Yeah, a lot of fans that watched this episode was comparing like how Boba Fett ended up surviving the Sarlacc pit, because like if you remember, like Boba also like got swallowed up like back in Return of the Jedi, but in this episode you see Boba Fett's armor just like literally intact. Coloring, his like paint job is still on there. Nothing like other than a few dents, of course. You know, it just still looks like nothing's different about it ever since we saw it last time in Return of the Jedi. So it makes sense that, you know, the Mando's armor protected him from, like, I guess from the, you know, the acid saliva that he was trapped in. So yeah, they managed to, so everyone ends up celebrating at the end. The Tusken Raiders and the townsfolk do end up, like, well, pretty much like cutting it up to pieces, you know, by getting its meat. And then one of the Tusken Raiders managed to pull out like a giant pearl from the Krayt Dragon, which is also a reference to, like, to one of the the pickups you get for killing the Krayt Dragon by getting its giant pearl from its body.
Yeah, I will say that's one of the things I really like about Mandalorian is the creators at least seem to understand Star Wars, and they know, like, where to put in all these, like, references and stuff. You know, like, as you know, that's one thing I definitely like is that, you know, they give you all these Easter eggs where, like, even if you've just, like, watched the movies, you might not understand. Like, you know, if you play the games, you might know where they're, like, what they're referencing, because, like, I didn't even know about that. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because, like, a lot of the stuff that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are doing for their respective shows is they acknowledge certain source materials from, like, from novels and comic books. In the movies, however, it's like it's a bit hit or miss in some of their stuff. I mean, yes, Rise of Skywalker did have, like, some references, like some cameos, like voice cameos from Ahsoka or Kanan Jarrus from, you know, from their respective shows, and maybe they
and apparently the idea with the dagger in Rise of Skywalker was also it was supposed to be the dagger of Mortis, so that was something else apparently that was supposed to be a reference, I guess.
Yeah, but that didn't end up being the case in the
it didn't
end.
end up actually being the dagger of Mortis.
Yeah, but in the end, by the time of the end of the episode, Cobb Vanth makes good on his promise to give back the armor, and now Mando is back in possession of it. So, and then so like Mando does end up riding off in the end of this episode, but the biggest surprise at the end was the last 10 seconds of the episode.
Yep. I actually see the appearance of Boba Fett, and I wasn't entirely sure because I completely, like, forgot kind of what the actor who played, because it's the actor who played the Jango Fett in the prequels, and I kind of forgot how what he looked like. But when my friend showed me a picture of him, I'm like, oh yeah, that's him. So apparently he's the one who's playing Boba Fett in this series. So yeah, we see him basically without his mask on. You know, we see the just him turn around, which is really awesome. Like, you know, in my opinion, like, the best part, honestly, like, the best part of this episode. Like, I liked everything else in the episode, but, like, the Krayt Dragon and all that, but yeah, the best part was just the you know, finally getting to see Boba Fett, and, you know, pretty much getting confirmation at least that he did survive. So that was pretty cool. You know, like, I'm wondering if Boba Fett is going to end up playing, like, a huge role in this season, because as we know, it seems like, you know, Mando is trying to go after the other Mandalorians and trying to get their help. So yeah, I guess it's a possibility that Boba Fett would, you know, maybe help out Mandalorian in some way later on. So
I mean, I don't see Boba Fett being an ally to the Mandalorian in the show, however, because
you would try to stop him or something, or yeah.
I mean, well, for one thing, I would assume that he's gonna go back for his armor, for one thing, because that's technically his.
Yeah.
But however, for another thing, Boba Fett's not technically a Mandalorian.
Yeah, that's true.
In a traditional sense.
But I mean, I guess maybe Mando might, you know, I'm not sure. I guess it's up in the air how that interaction might go down if, you know, when Boba Fett confronts Mando, if it'll be like an adversarial thing or if they'll, like, team up. It's hard to say, I guess. Like, I mean, I guess you could see it could go either way. I'm
more under the impression that Boba is, like Boba is gonna have a more of an adversarial or rivalry relationship with Mando, because for one thing, they both wear the same type of armor, and number two, they're both bounty hunters. So it's possible. Like I mean, like I said, Boba Fett's not a traditional Mandalorian because he's technically a clone of Jango Fett, and not much is known about Jango Fett for this continuity. But if no one's familiar with the older continuity, the Legends continuity, Jango Fett was technically like a Mandalorian back then, but you know he was also adopted into the Mandalorian creed under similar circumstances.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he was. That's kind of how it was in the prequels, or you know, at least from what I remember of at least with Boba's relationship with Jango, or you know, it's kind of like that. But I don't know. I feel like if it's adversarial, like Mando would definitely get a run for his money, because I feel like Boba would probably wipe the floor with him. He's more experienced by far, so I don't know. I'm not sure how that would go down, honestly.
I mean, they're both experienced so far. I mean, I don't think you know, Mando is able to hold his own for, like, you know, from what we've seen so far. I mean, he's killed he's killed the freaking crate dragon for one thing. I mean, I would assume, like, under similar circumstances, Boba did the exact same thing.
It's hard to say, because if you take into account, like, the Legends continuity, you know, they do really build up Boba Fett as being, like, this badass. But, like, you know, as far as we know in the movies, you know, we don't really know that much, you know, about him, really. As you know, it's really like the expanded material where they go into Boba Fett more.
Yeah. Well, I am glad that, you know, that they finally put this to rest by finally getting Boba Fett into the show. And there are potentially other characters that they are bringing back in. Well, they are bringing into the season. Like I said, Rosario Dawson is
Rebels characters.
Yeah, like Rosario Dawson, being revealed as Ahsoka Tano. But there's also, like, I think a couple other characters. Katie Sackhoff playing as Bo-Katan, who she played as in her animated adapted version in the Clone Wars. So I am interested in seeing that, because for those that watched the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels, Bo-Katan was the last person to have held the Darksaber before Moff Gideon took possession of it.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting then. Speaking of Moff Gideon, I really can't wait for them to get back to that plot where, you know, Moff Gideon is chasing after Mando. You know, I kind of, as much as I do like the self-contained episodes, I am interested to see what they're going to do with, you know, kind of the overarching plot in this season.
Yeah, I mean, we do know this episode does give us some ideas of what Mando is intending on doing right now, is looking for other Mandalorian tribes to help assist him in his mission. If I would assume, like, he's trying to look for other Mandalorians if they know of, like, maybe any Jedi, or maybe finding Baby Yoda's species or something like that. But it's like I said, that particular thing is I don't know. It's like, because of the armor tasked him to help find the child's own kind, but she didn't really reference, like, if it's like finding his own species or finding the Jedi. So like Mando doesn't really reference that.
Either way, it'll be interesting. Like, if we see some Jedi in this season, or if, you know, we see other species of Yoda creatures, that'll also be really huge. If we see some more Yodas.
Yeah, I mean, but that's still a worry for me.
They could go either way. They could totally mess it up, or they could, you know, it could be pretty interesting. So I guess it could go one way or another. Yeah,
I mean, we'll have to wait and see. So far, like, I mean, this episode was self-contained, and, you know, there were a lot of, like, a lot of Easter eggs thrown in there. But I thought this was a decent first episode for the second season.
Yeah, definitely.
And where it's potentially going with now that they made this huge reveal at the end of the episode.
Yeah, and it's like we had to wait a while for this season, but it was definitely worth the wait. You know.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully they they finished filming this show like before the whole COVID thing like affected us. Yeah. I think they're about 7 more. There's going to be 8 episodes this season, similar to how the first season
I will
was,
say one thing too is I was surprised at how long this episode was too, because it was like 50 some minutes. I think the episodes are usually like 30 or so. I don't.
It was normally 40 minutes for all the other episodes, but yeah, I was surprised in how long this episode was, and I noticed the aspect ratio changed like during the Crate Dragon fight as well.
That actually, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you notice, like when at the end of the episode when Mando was riding away in his bike, you notice the aspect ratio bars were like were like squeezing down at the end.
Maybe it's just trying to do the whole like trying to capture the Western feel of it, I guess.
Possibly, but it almost like if you were watching an IMAX movie or something like that.
Well, I mean, this does seem like it almost has, kind of like the budget of a movie in terms of all the effects and everything.
Yeah. I mean, but the one interesting is like if you watched like the documentary of how they made the show, they weren't really on location.
Yeah, they said they do virtual
where they were
sets,
shooting this.
I think.
Yeah, which made it look like that they were actually on location, but you wouldn't recognize it because for one, they never used green screen, and two, like it's just basically like a huge like round wall of monitors like all around, like thinking that you're on location of that certain set.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, it seems like it's working out for them though, because it's usually sometimes with the green screen it's pretty obvious if they're using a green screen, but here it's like I really can't tell as the difference between them actually being there and them doing these virtual sets.
Yeah, and it seems like it's revolutionary to the point where other movies are going to start using this new technology.
I think it's a good idea at least if it's utilized well. Because I mean, here it seems.
Yeah, I mean, for one, it saves money for one thing, and it's definitely useful for them to use, like, because they're showing this on a monthly streaming service.
Yeah, but yeah, I will say this was a really good episode. Like, it's a really good way to start off the season. Definitely looking forward to the next one. I'm wondering, if we're going to see some more Boba Fett, if we might see some other. I definitely know, like, of course, we're going to see some of the characters that were introduced in the first season come back, such as Cara Dune, and I forget what the other guy's name. But we're going to see them come back, and some other characters. So it seems like this is definitely going to be like there, like, at least in this season, there's going to be crossover, especially like I said with Clone Wars characters and the characters from Rebels. So I'm going to be interested when they pop up.
Yeah, because they mentioned that they're going to expand a lot more on the Star Wars lore in this season.
I like that they're doing that too, because I mean, like, one of the things that I definitely get on the sequel trilogy for is, like, I felt like we didn't really see like what happened to some of the planets and the people after the events of, like, Return of the Jedi. And here it seems like they're kind of trying to expand on that, like, what happened to the characters on this planet, how did they deal with the fall of the Empire and all this other stuff. So it's like really good world building that we just didn't get with the sequels.
Yeah, they do a lot. They do a lot of decent, like, what was it, exposition as to what happened, like, after Return of the Jedi. Like, it's not really all sunshine and rainbows for everyone. Which I like.
It's fairly realistic in that sense. It's like it's not all happy that after the fall of the Empire, it's there's still bad things happening in the galaxy. Yeah,
and not to mention, like, in certain novels, they also go through, like, all the difficulties they had to go through in building the New Republic. Yeah. Because, like, they didn't really have, like, by the time of the sequel trilogy, like, the New Republic at the time wasn't really as big as, like, as the Old Republic was back in the prequel trilogy.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, the Old Republic, they were huge, and then in the New Republic, they're just trying to rebuild after the Empire ruling over them for a long time. So, that makes sense. But yeah, like I said, I can't wait to see more of, see what we're going to get with the next episode. how they're going to expand on some of the world building stuff, as well as, you know, some of the characters I'm expecting to be introduced. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say about it. I don't know if you got anything else to say.
Yeah, I like I said, I thought this was a decent first episode for the second season. It was a standalone episode, but it offered us a lot of good stuff, like you know, from its world building, and like including like bringing back characters like from like different books that we didn't expect to see.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I guess all that being said, these episodes, I think they come out on Friday, right? Like every Friday.
Yeah, Friday.
Yeah. So that being said, until next Friday, we will see you all later.